Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Star City Blood Bowl League Round 8 weekly update. We'll go through all the matchups that have occurred since the last update, kind of look at the standings where we're at, and then we only have really 3 rounds to go, but that's really just 2 games left for most everybody. Some people have 3 left in order to finish up their season, and then we'll have an idea what the playoff picture looks like and see who's moving on to the next round of play. So, I guess kind of jumping into this a little bit, we'll take a look at the standings and first the Blue Ridge Division. The Blue Ridge Division is currently led by the Southeast Purple Haze with 5 wins and 2 draws. They still have 3 games left to go for the season. And with 21 points, it looks like they are just really outscoring everybody in the league right now with a +8 net touchdown. Um, they also are getting beat up a little bit. That's likely just a whole bunch of snotling injuries with a -17 net casualty. The Kansas City Dark Elves are close behind with 18 points, followed by the Ulthuan Winds, the Tricera Stompers. So those are the top 4 currently within the playoff picture right now. But there are at least 5 teams that still could make playoffs easily. That's the Lothorian Predators, the Liver Spoiled Wretches, the Blackwater Ferrymen, the Bloodied Barons, and the Scumdogs of the Universe. So all 5 of those teams, if they win enough, the right amount of games, and make those big wins, they could easily find themselves in the top 4 and in the playoff picture. And then lastly, in the bottom of our division, we have the Boggy Bottom Boys and the Mill Mountaineers. So then looking at the Mill Mountain division, we have the Thundercocks, which is in the lead there with 27 points, and they have 6 wins and 2 draws. I think they have secured a playoff spot. I don't think there's anyone that's catching them at this point. But that is something I guess that could still happen if the right amount of it could still, let's see. No, so it doesn't look like anybody could catch them at this point. So the Thundercocks have locked in a playoff spot. Whether they stay the 1st seed or the 4th seed is yet to be determined. Then we have the Northwood Raiders with 5 wins, a draw, and a loss, and 21 points. The Cave Spring Crash in 3rd with 18 points. And then in 4th, the Passing Pathogens with 15 points. Following up that, the teams that are still in the playoff contention and could easily make it are the Monster Mash, the Talabime Valley Titans, the Rotten Judgment, the Wasino Wog. Technically, the Garden City Shadow Goats could still make it in. And 3 games to go. If they 5-pointed win in each of those, the Temple City Topplers could even make it. I think the only team that's going to not be able to make the playoffs, regardless of how they perform in their next 3 games, is the Southwest Venom. So that's kind of the standings of where they look right now. Looking at the upcoming matches for Round 9. Round 9, we have the Blackwater Ferrymen against the Scumdogs of the Universe. So the Blackwater Ferrymen are averaging 1.4 touchdowns per game, I believe, and the Scumdogs of the Universe are averaging 1.6. Defensively, it looks like the Blackwater Ferrymen have been playing a little better this year, not allowing as many touchdowns. From a brutality standpoint, though, the Scumdogs of the Universe are doing much better as far as causing casualties. However, on the flip side of that, the Blackwater Ferrymen have also done a really good job of avoiding injuries. So the way that I see this looking right now, neither the team is also fouling very much. Both of them have a substantial amount of cash in their treasury. So I think we might start to see some people inducing star players as the season comes to an end where they need those big wins and really just don't want to carry that much cash around each game. So we might see some star players coming out. But my guess is that, let's see, let me take a look here. So the Blackwater Ferrymen are all healthy against the Scumdogs. They're still only sitting with 11 players, but they have 300,000 gold. I'm not sure why they haven't bought any extra linemen, just to have as an extra guy or a goblin, maybe even to throw. wouldn't be a bad idea. So I'm going to give this one. I think this is maybe the match where the Blackwater Ferrymen are going to get a little more hurt than they're used to. So I'm going to give this one to the Scum Dogs and a 2-1 victory here. The next we have the Lothlorien Predators against the Southeast Purple Haze. Um, both of these teams have been performing pretty well as of late. Um, it looks like offensively, the Purple Haze average about 2.1 touchdowns per game versus the Lothlorien Predators 1.7. Both of them are playing excellent defensively. Um, it does seem that the Lothlorien Predators are getting beat up a little more than the Purple Haze are. And then, however, the resistance of the armor, because of the number of casualties that are given up by the Purple Haze, their resistance is pretty low with those snotlings. The main difference here, I think, is that the Dirty Players, I think this is 2 fouls per game average. I think this is what this means. Versus 0 for the Lothlorien Predators. They typically don't have enough people to really get this in there and get in there for a foul and risk losing a player because they're already losing so many from injuries anyway. My prediction on this, I think it's going to be 2-1 with the Southeast Purple Haze taking the win over the Lothlorien Predators. I think the Predators are just going to get fouled a bunch, and the Purple Haze are still going to be able to score, maybe even induce a star with the way the TV difference is. But I think the Lothlorien Predators only have 11 players. They're missing a catcher, whereas the Southeast Purple Haze have like 13 or 14 players. All of them look pretty healthy, including there is Toe Cutter, which has a Mighty Blow tackle, Blitzer, which I think will be very useful during the game. But yeah, so I give this one to the Purple Haze 2-1. Next, we have the Kansas City Dark Elves against the Tricera Stompers. So the Tricera Stompers are averaging almost 2 touchdowns per game, 1.3 for the Kansas City Dark Elves. Defensively, the Tricera Stompers aren't allowing a bunch of touchdowns, but even better, the Dark Elves are also not allowing very many. It looks like the Tricera Stompers have been giving up a bunch of casualties, or have not been getting a bunch of casualties, which bodes pretty well for the Kansas Dark Elves. Resistance-wise, the Tricera Stompers are being able to hold their own. They're not taking many injuries, and the Kansas City Dark Elves are doing a fair job of avoiding that as well. Neither are fouling very much. And so let's take a look at their rosters real quick. All healthy there. A bunch of block Saurus, couple tackle Saurus with no block. And then we have some blodge steppers, some blodgers, wrestle dodger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they'll get a journeyman, which will just get them a little closer. Maybe they take Glorial to pass with or something. And so I guess what I'm going to look at this one is it's probably going to be 2-1 with the Kansas City Dark Elves outscoring the Tricera Stompers. Next, we have the Boggy Bottom Boys against the Bloodied Barons. So Boggy Bottom scoring a little less than 1 touchdown per game. Bloody Barons are 1.3 per game. Defensively, it looks like the Barons are playing the better defense. They're also doing more injuries, but the armor of the High Elves have been holding up pretty well compared to that of the Halflings. And it looks like the Halflings foul more than the High Elves, which you would expect. The Boggy Bottom Boys are kind of on a winless streak for a little bit, whereas the Bloody Barons have surprised some people with their star players to be able to bring out some good stars. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they have 11 players sitting at 1190, so very low team value against the Bloody Barons. Also this is actually pretty high team value, 900. So really we're only probably going to see 1 star unless the High Elves dump their cash. And so it's likely we're going to see someone like Rumbelow is my guess. Considering he's kind of the go-to with his tackle, block, and juggernaut, and strength 4 when he's blitzing, which are very very good against elf teams. So I would expect to see Rumbelow come out for this game. Maybe if he drops the cash, maybe it's Griff or Deep Root, but not as many. You're not going to see a double star player unless it's two cheap ones, I think, coming out for the halflings. So that being said, I think I'm going to give this one. I'm actually going to say this one is a draw. I'm going to say it's going to be 1-1 in this one. I think the main thing that's going to hurt the Barons is their kind of lack of star player access is going to make them more of a halfling team than they're used to. And the High Elves still can score as long as they can avoid injury. Next, the Ulthuan wins against the Liver Spoiled Wretches. So the Ulthuan wins, you're scoring about two touchdowns per game versus the one for the Liver Spoiled Wretches. They're also both playing well defensively, both injuring about at the same rate, and they're actually pretty much resistance at the same rate. Another difference here is that the Wretches are fouling a little more. So taking a look at these teams, that is a lot of elves. Is this 15 elves? Yeah, 15 elves, so a pretty deep bench for the pro elves. Sitting at 1590 against 1375 of the liver spoiled wretches. I don't even know what stars they have access to be honest. Glart, Hackflim. Hackflim? Are they going to get 210? Yeah. Ooh. Okay. That may change my prediction on this if they take Hackflim. Okay, so if they take Hackflim as the ball carrier for the liver spoiled wretches, I'm actually going to give this one to them 2-1. If they don't, I think it's going to be 1-1. Yeah, and I'll kind of leave it at that. I think that the main thing is just if the elves, if they end up with a couple players on the ground, I would expect them to get fouled, and it's very likely they'll be leaving the pitch. Um, so I think they're going to start having to. They'll be relying on non-skilled players at some point in the game, and that's really going to hurt them, I think. Looking at next round, then the next one, the Taliban Valley Titans against the Northwood Raiders. This is a playoff contention matchup for the Valley Titans. They need a win here, and they really need a big win. They're down 100K in team value. Sorry about that. They're down 100K in team value. Um, and they're scoring about 1.3 touchdowns per game versus the 2 for the Northwood Raiders. They have defensive abilities are equal, brutality is pretty equal, resistance equal, dirty play pretty much equal. So for most purposes, you could probably consider these teams pretty even, aside from the fact that the Northwood Raiders have been able to score a little more each game. And so kind of looking here what we could maybe expect. A block Mighty Blow Yeti, dirty player, guard, juggernaut strip ball, block, tackle, block, dodge, sure feet. Okay, and then cannoneer, tackle, mighty blow, guard, mighty blow. So I guess looking at this right off the bat, I kind of want to say that this will end up being a draw. I think it's going to just be 1-1, which will maybe be unfortunate for the Valley Titans because I know they need a win. And really, the Northwood Raiders are pretty much just playing for draws for the rest of the season, so they're in really no need to play super big unless they're trying to go for like the number 1 seed spot or something like that. Um, then I think they're pretty secured within the playoffs as long as they can just keep from getting blown out and fend off these couple of games against the people that are also contending for the playoffs. So I'm going to say this one is 1-1. I could see it going 2-1 with Northwood Raiders against the Valley Titans. But I still think it's probably going to end up likely a draw. All right, the Temple City Topplers against the Garden City Shadow Goats. So neither of these teams score very much. They're less than one touchdown per game for each of them. Both of them do well preventing touchdowns, but brutality, they don't injure a super ton, but they do resist injury, neither fouls very much. So, what are we looking at? There's a bunch of cash for the Garden City Shadow Goats against not very much cash for the Tricera Stompers. They're still down a Saurus that they've not been able to buy back. Still randoming a bunch of skills versus pretty standard, pretty low team value Chaos Chosen. So what do I think is going to happen here? Let's see, 250K. They got 11 players. They could induce a star if they wanted, which might not be a bad idea to grab like Hackflim. I think Hackflim can play for them. Right? He's chosen of. Yeah, Hackflim would be a good choice. Um, Glart would be a really good choice too. Stand firm, claws, block, and strength 4. Having a 5th strength 4 guy might be good against the 5th Saurus. Um, so what do I think is going to happen here? Oh, Jesus. Um, my guess is this game's going to be 1-1 and end up in a draw. That's what I'm going to say here. Next, we have the Cave Spring Crash against the Southwest Venom. So the Crash have been playing very well defensively and offensively. They score almost 2 touchdowns per game. They don't give up very many at all. The Southwest Venom have struggled a little bit on offense, not reaching 1 touchdown per game. They do play good defense, but they've not been able to hurt and remove people off the field. Pretty average resistance of armor compared to the Crash, which is also average. I mean, the Crash do foul occasionally, but not very often, whereas the Venom foul never. What do we got here? So, still a pretty beat up, hard to, they haven't been very successful at being able to level up. It looks like they have a primary they could choose on their Witch if they wanted to, which they probably should, against the K-Spring Crash, which is your standard slam team, a bunch of dodge catchers, block. You got a wrestle player here, wrestle blitzer, I'm sorry, which is probably their star at popping the ball out. And then their catcher is just 1 point away from a chosen secondary. So what do I think is going to happen? I think this one's probably going to be a blowout, to be honest. Yeah, it's probably going to be a blowout. I think this one's going to be like 2-0 with the Crash beating the Venom, maybe even 3-0. I just think the Venom probably aren't going to be able to cage up and hold the ball enough to really get out of this. So I imagine the Crash are going to be popping the ball out constantly, being able to score defensively, and allow them to end the game pretty quickly. So I think this is a 5-point win for the Crash. Looking at the Rotten Judgment against the Passing Pathogens, Pathogens are getting about 2 touchdowns per game versus the 1.4 for the Rotten Judgment. Both are playing identical, pretty much defense. The Pathogens are about twice as good at hurting opponents. However, the Elven Judge or the Rotten Judgment Elven Union team are about twice as good at preventing injuries. So those kind of balance out a little bit. There's occasionally about a half a foul per game from the Passing Pathogens. And they've struggled a little bit lately. Both of these teams getting wins. I think they're usually stuck in kind of these fits of draws. Looks like the Rotten Judgment will have 150K. And so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so they need 2 players. And then the Passing Pathogens, that puts them at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're hurting a bunch of players as well. So it's going to be a pretty low TV on low TV matchup with really no stars, probably. It's just going to be playing with their players plus some journeymen in this game. And so what do I think will happen here? I think this one, who do I want to give this one to? They're missing the tacklers, missing the mighty blows. Missing their thrower. Who are they missing? They still have all their stars. Ooh, I think I'm going to give this one the Rotten Judgment. I'm going to give this one 2-1. Rotten Judgment over the Passing Pathogens. And lastly, we have the Thundercocks against the Wasina Wog. The Thundercocks average about 1.6 touchdowns per game versus the one for the Wasina Wog. They are playing the best defensively in the league right now against the 2.4 for the Black Orcs. Both are injuring at about a similar rate. However, the Wog have been able to avoid injury pretty substantially, and then they're also fouling over 3 fouls per game throughout the season. They are on kind of a, I don't want to say a draw streak, but yeah, I mean they've drawn their last 2 games after winning their first 6, so they have faltered a little bit in this team value level that we're currently playing at. And so what do we have here? So the Thundercocks have a bunch of block, a bunch of guard, 4 guard, 4 block, mighty blow. They did get a random dirty player. They actually have almost everybody has block of some form aside from a couple linemen and the sneaky get tater cackle foul. They do have a troll now, which is Cannonball Elf Splitter. 165k gold in the bank, 3 rerolls. Looking at the Wasina Wog, they have still a bunch of Mighty Blow. They have some multi-block randoms, which really won't be useful in this game with the strength compared to the Orc team. They are missing their Troll, a guard Troll, which does hurt them quite a bit. They have a Sprint Sure Feet and a Shadowing Catch Goblin Bruiser. And no money in the bank, but they're going to get a bunch of inducements. So I think they could induce a couple different stars. I don't know if they can afford Morg, but it's close. They could definitely, I think, get Varog as a player if they wanted to. I'm trying to think. Bomber's really good for his value. And then they get cheap bribes, so it may be worth like Bomber, Helmet, some cheap bribes, or even Black Gobbo and some cheap bribes or something like that. Some combination of those would probably be smart to get in this match here. I think they get 370. Yeah, so they almost could get Morg if they wanted to. Yeah, they just have to spend 10k cash. They could get Morg against the Thundercocks for this match, which would be a good play too. He's usually pretty effective at removing players sometimes. So he's kind of hit or miss, I guess, is what I've always seen. Either he does tons of damage or he's like not effective at all. So my guess for this match, I think this one's probably going to be, I think it's going to be 2-1. I think the Thundercocks are going to win, but the Wasina Wog will still punch a touchdown in. So 2-1 is my prediction for this match here. And that, I think, does it for the matches. So looking at the honors, the team honors. So most valued team right now is the Ulthuan Winds at 1590. There's a few teams that are about 1450 in that range. Most famed right now, the Purple Haze is still the only team that can kind of secure that top 7 dedicated fans. There's a number of people with 5. Most experienced right now, the Purple Haze have gotten over 117 SPP this season, with a number of other teams over 100. Best performance right now, this is like some summation of touchdowns, casualties, completions, interceptions, injuries, deaths, and fouls, is the Thundercocks right now with 71. Purple Haze with 69. Most scorer right now is the Purple Haze of the Ulthuan Winds with 15 apiece. A couple teams with 14 and one with 13. Best defensive right now is the Thundercocks, only allowing 4 touchdowns all season, followed closely behind by the Kansas City Dark Elves and the Northwood Raiders. Most beast is still the Scumdogs of the Universe, leading with 19 casualties caused. Most injured is the Passing Pathogens with 17 injuries received this season. Most deadly, the Taliban Valley Titans After their last game, I think have caused the most death in the season, which is 5. The Thundercocks have caused 4. A couple teams have caused 2. Most dirty playing team is the Thundercocks with 25 fouls. Most sent off is the Liver Spoiled Wretches. They've been caught 8 times, so they're not very sneaky when they're fouling. Most completions. This goes to the Purple Haze with 22 completions. Best stunty team is the Bloody Barons, and I imagine they will hold on to that title for the rest of the season. Best run right now is 6 consecutive wins. That was done by the Thundercocks. Worst run right now is 6 consecutive losses by the Southwest Venom. So that's kind of looking at the teams. Looking at the players now, most valued player, we have 3 players that are all sitting at 175K, which is Anacetus, a blitzer for the Rotten Judgment, Lucian Bladesong, Lucian Bladesong, a war dancer for the Predators, and Kuzu, a blitzer for the Ulthuan Winds. And then a couple werewolves trail close behind. Most valued big guy is a tie between the Incredible Bulk and Emily the Wicked D, which is a Yeti on the Northwood Raiders. Most valued stunty is Slade from the Tricera Stompers. Applecrumb follows closely behind on the Bloody Barons, and then Mortar the Halfling Hefty. Most experienced right now, so this is typically our Spike Magazine player award, is Sneak Scuttle Spike with 43 SPP gained so far this season, followed closely behind by Pustulus Maximus. Best performance right now, and this is really not, I don't think, a good metric at all, but Tater Cacklefowl is the best performing player right now with 27 performance points for the league. Most scorer is Sneak Scuttle Spike with 13 touchdowns. Most beast is Blothar the Berserker. He's almost doubled the second place person, which puts him at 10 casualties so far this season. For the Rat Ogre, the Renegade Rat Ogre, most injured is Gnarls Barkley. Has been injured 4 times this season, so that's almost half the games he's been hurt. Most MVP, there's a 5-way tie between a bunch of teams, but right now it shows Albert Rothman, the blitzer for the Talbot Valley Titans, in first. Most fouling player or most dirty player, Tater Cacklefowl has fouled 24 times this season and only been sent off 3 times, which is also the most sent off single player. And then most completions is Flicks Lateral with 22 completions. So it's kind of looking at the honors so far. So I guess with that being said, like I said, this will be our round 9. We only have round 10 and 11 to go. If you have the bye this week, please let me know so I can clear any missing next games. I can look and try and figure out who that is, but it's always easiest if you can just message me and I can clear them off. That being said, I hope everybody has a good round 9. Please try and get your game in. I'm sorry for my coughing and stuff as I've been sick. But, have a good round 9. I hope everybody pushes really hard for the playoffs. Thank you for playing so far. Where 75% of the season is over, a little over. And so we're kind of in the home stretch. So I guess if you're feeling the fatigue of playing in a season this long, thank you for continuing to play. And the finish line is not far ahead. So I hope everybody has had fun so far. Have a good rest of the week. And if I don't talk to you before then, have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, everybody.